The Garden of Forking Paths is a 1941 short story by Argentine writer and poet Jorge Luis Borges. It is the title story in the collection El Jardín de senderos que se bifurcan, which was republished in its entirety in Ficciones in 1944. It was the first of Borges's works to be translated into English by Anthony Boucher when it appeared in Ellery Queen's Mystery magazine in August 1948. Borges's vision of forking paths has been cited as inspiration by numerous new media scholars, in particular within the field of hypertext fiction. Other stories by Borges that express the idea of infinite texts include the Library of Babel, and the Book of Sand. Plot summary. The story takes the form of a signed statement by a Chinese professor of English named Dr. Yu Tsun who is living in the United Kingdom during World War I. Tsun is a spy for the German Empire who has realized that a Mile 5 agent called Captain Richard Madden is pursuing him, has entered the apartment of his handler Victor Rumberg, and either captured or killed him. Dr. Tsun is certain that his own arrest is next. He has just discovered the location of a new British artillery park and wishes to convey that knowledge to his German handlers before he is captured. He at last hits upon a desperate plan in order to achieve this. Dr. Tsun explains that his spying has never been for the sake of Imperial Germany, which he considers a barbarous country. Rather, he says, he did it because he wanted to prove to his racist masters that an Asian is intelligent enough to obtain the information needed to save their soldiers' lives. Tsun suspects that Captain Madden, an Irishman in the employ of the British Empire, might be similarly motivated. Taking his few possessions, Tsun boards a train to the village of Ashgrove. Narrowly avoiding the pursuing Captain Madden at the train station, he goes to the house of Dr. Stephen Albert, an eminent sinologist. As he walks up the road to Dr. Albert's house, Tsun reflects on his great ancestor, Drui Pa En, a learned and famous man who renounced his job as governor of Yunnan in order to undertake two tasks, to write a vast and intricate novel, and to construct an equally vast and intricate labyrinth, one in which all men would lose their way. Drui Pa En was murdered before completing his novel, however, and what he did write was a contradictory jumble of irresolute drafts that made no sense to subsequent readers. Nor was the labyrinth ever found. Dr. Tsun arrives at the house of Dr. Albert, who is deeply excited to have met a descendant of Drui Pa En. Dr. Albert reveals that he has himself been engaged in a long-time study of Drui Pa En's novel. Albert explains excitedly that at one stroke he has solved both mysteries the chaotic and jumbled nature of Drui Pa En's unfinished book and the mystery of his lost labyrinth. Albert's solution is that they are one and the same, the book is the labyrinth. Basing his work on the strange legend that Drui Pa En had intended to construct an infinite labyrinth, as well as a cryptic letter from Drui Pa En himself stating, "I leave to several futures my garden of forking paths." Dr. Albert realized that the Garden of Forking Paths was the novel, and that the forking took place in time, not in space. As compared to most fictions, where the character chooses one alternative at each decision point and thereby eliminates all the others, Drui Pa En's novel attempted to describe a world where all possible outcomes of an event occur simultaneously, each one itself leading to further proliferations of possibilities. Albert further explains that these constantly diverging paths do sometimes converge again, though as the result of a different chain of causes. For example, he says, in one possible timeline Dr. Tsun has come to his house as an enemy, in another as a friend. Though trembling with gratitude at Albert's revelation and in awe of his ancestor's literary genius, Tsun glances up the path to see Captain Madden approaching the house. He asks Albert to see Drui Pa En's letter again. Dr. Albert turns to retrieve it, Tsun draws a revolver, and declares his friendship before murdering him in cold blood. Dr. Tsun is arrested, convicted of murder, and sentenced to death by hanging. However, he has, most abhorrently triumphed, as he has revealed to Berlin the location of the artillery park. Indeed, the park is bombed as Tsun goes on trial. The location of the artillery park was in Albert. Dr. Tsun had realized that the only way to convey that information was to murder a person of that name, so that the news of the murder would appear in British newspapers connected with his name. In modern culture, In 1987, Stuart Moulthrop created a hypertextual version of The Garden of Forking Paths. This name was given to relate the Gulf War setting of his novel and Borges' Victory Garden. This work would never be published but is highly discussed in academic literature. In homage to the story, the TV series Flash Forward made an episode entitled The Garden of Forking Paths. In the episode, the character Dyson Frost referred to a map of the possible futures as his Garden of Forking Paths. Parallels have been drawn between the concepts in the story to the many-worlds interpretation in physics by Bryce DeWitt in his preface to the many-world interpretation of quantum mechanics. Andrew Gelman references the Garden of Forking Paths to describe how scientists can make false discoveries when they do not pre-specify a data analysis plan and instead choose one analysis for the particular data they saw. The Garden of Forking Paths refers to the near-infinite number of choices facing researchers in cleaning and analyzing data, and emphasizes the need for pre-analysis planning and independent replication, an especially relevant consideration in social psychology's recent replication crisis. See also, Gilles Deleuze's use of this story to illustrate the Leibnizian concept of several impossible worlds simultaneously existing and the problem of future contingents. A.S.R. Arada's linking of the Garden of Forking Paths, and quantum theory's sum over history's concept for an event-driven urbanism project. References, ABC Wardrip Ruin, Noah, and Nick Montfort, eds. The New Media Reader. Cambridge, MIT Press, 2003. Bolter, J. David. Joyce, Michael. Hypertext and Creative Writing. Hypertext 87 Papers. ACM. Pages 41-50. Moulthrop, Stuart. Reading from the Map, Metonymy and Metaphor in the Fiction of Forking Paths. In Delaney, Paul. Lando, George P. Hypermedia and Literary Studies. Cambridge, Massachusetts and London, England, the MIT Press. Biographical Sketch of Hugh Everett, 3, Eugene Shikovts of http, /mitadute McKeever at HTML, The Many-World Interpretation of Quantum Mechanics, N. Graham and B. DeWitt eds, Princeton University Press, Princeton, 1973. http, DSPACE Maxosi Edu 10575/1302, The Garden of Forking Paths, Why Multiple Comparisons Can Be a Problem, Even When There Is No a Fishing Expedition or a Web Hacking and the Research Hypothesis Was Posited Ahead of Time, Andrew Gelman and Eric Lucan http, www.stat.columbia Research Packing PDF. External links. The Garden of Forking Paths Full text, Stuart Moulthrop, Concerning Forking Paths, Silvio Gaggi, Hyperrealities and Hypertexts, Lev Manovich, New Media from Borges to HTML, Nick Montfort Introduction to the Garden of Forking Paths in the New Media Reader.